Return to Glory podcast. Hunter Zarbanicki here with just Dakota Freitag tonight. Austin is out following the Huskers' dominant, in air quotes, performance against Purdue, winning 28-10 in West Lafayette, moving to 4-1 on the season. I did not get a chance to watch the game. I listened to most all of it and watched the highlights. Was running the market to market. Why I sign up for that every year, I don't know. But basically, we run as a team from Omaha to Lincoln. So Dak, you might have watched more. You probably did watch more of the game than I did this week.
Yeah, you were doing something a little bit more functional than I was doing all day. But yeah, I did end up watching the game. Would you call it a dominant win?
That's why I'm putting it in air quotes. It was an interesting tale of two teams and two games, I guess, all inside one.
Yeah, you moved the ball well. I was sitting with my buddy and I was like, hey, it feels like Nebraska on the opponent 40 this whole game. And it felt like you were just there at that same spot, no man's land, 30 to 40 yard line the whole game.
That was definitely a storyline, especially early on. And it just sounded like on the radio, it always just seemed like we were right at the 35, the 40, the 30.
Yep.
Close to field goal range, but as we know from Nebraska kickers, not probably in field goal range. So it felt like we were moving the ball okay, like you said, but just couldn't execute when it comes to points. I did tell Dak this episode that he needs to open up and share his feelings because he has more time to talk. So Dak is really going to give the insights today, open up about all of his feelings. He even mentioned his love life at one point, if he can talk about that. So we're really
I was joking about that part.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
I feel like the people really want to hear about your love life.
We ain't getting that far in there. We don't got time for that. we
Too much.
don't got days.
Yeah.
But so I think it showed the first drive how little you trust your kicker off the bat. You punt the ball on the 34-yard line, and that's just showing you don't trust your kicker at all.
Well, I mean, 51 yards for us is right now at the ways, and it sucks because I mean we all know the state of where we're at, and then we'll get to the field goal kicks after that. But I was watching Virginia Tech Miami Friday night, and Virginia Tech's got a guy that comes out and just buries 250+ yarders. I'm like, these kickers are out there. Like, don't tell me that we can't pay a kicker to come to Nebraska, and maybe a long snapper and a holder, whatever package we need to get to make field goals in games that we need to. Now, it didn't come down to costing us a win, but they definitely have. So while we did win, I want to remind people that there's still things that we need to be very concerned about. I think it's easy to nitpick and go through the ifs and the specific plays of what we did wrong when you lose, because you like to analyze it more. But then when you win, I will say generally as fans, we don't do that as much. Now, the coaches, I'm sure, are, and good coaching staffs know how to properly go back and communicate that to their players. But as fans, we kind of say, okay, we won. Yeah, special teams sucked. Yeah, we had some penalties, but, well, it's okay. We won the game. I just want to caveat, I don't think Purdue's a very good football team.
No. You said this yesterday. Do you actually not have a special team kicker or coach?
We do.
Okay, you do? Okay.
You
well, that guy, how that guy has a job, no clue that guy's a job. I mean, he might as well not even have showed up yesterday. He's like no call, no show right there. That was one of the worst kicking I've ever saw in a game.
It's fascinating, though, you say that, because, I mean, you are a Nebraska fan more than an Oklahoma fan, but you're not a diehard Nebraska fan. And just from the outsider's perspective, you could fall back on the coach and say, well, special teams have been bad again. Nebraska fans are tired of it. We have done get a new special teams coach before. Maybe, I mean, yeah, I guess he's the one responsible, but at the same time, like, kicking's a unique position that, yeah, you teach it. And from what it sounds like, a lot of these guys are doing their own type of training and coaching. It's the mental side. And well, snapping, I don't know. It's puzzling. We talked about bringing in Brett Maher to help work with them. Um, it's a culmination of a lot of things. I think you got to still boost confidence into those guys, but man, it's not good. It's not good at all.
No. Yeah, that's like I said, mentally. I think this guy's got to be damn near mentally shot already. Like,
Well,
you
he
don't
just
want this guy
started
to come back.
he just started kicking, right?
Yeah, and those kicks got blocked. I mean, it's kind of on your own line, kind of your holder that didn't have the best snaps either. But he kicked them so low; they were short kicks. Those you kick high, you kick them so low they were not even. It was halfway up the person's body where they blocked the kicks. It was
Yep.
like
It's not like it was a great defensive play to get to
he
the
was kicking them
ball.
like they were 50-yarders, like he was trying to drive them. It was like,
And I don't know. I don't know enough about kicking routines to say if the snap's bad and the hole's bad. I think that was what the message was. To me, if you're the kicker, from what my high school football holding days that I had, like if you're the kicker, you don't give a shit about what the snap and the hold. You have your routine, you do it on pace and you go. Like the ball's not there, then you're swinging it air type of deal. Like you're not worried about the other pieces. So to that point, Dak, yeah, you're right. It's low, but I think the argument is that the bad snap, hold, whatever, can play a factor into your approach. So if there's any specialists out there, kicker specialists that can confirm what I just said, let me know. Or
right here.
maybe just go put a uniform on and kick. Maybe that's what we need.
Now you were
Okay, go
you were
ahead.
talking about why holding the ball. Why do kickers not like the laces out? I've never figured that out.
It's a rotation thing.
Okay. Yeah, which the holds were just the laces were never out. They were just bobbled holds, and he got the holder had the ball up there like set pretty well for him
Well,
to kick
okay,
it.
when you say out, you want the laces away from your foot. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
You're saying you don't want it. You want the laces out. You don't want them in. You don't want to hit the laces, and you preferably
Yep.
want the laces like if you're a right-footed kicker, face left.
Okay. Yep. And so the holds end up being pretty good for him bobbling it around, but that's just straight up on your kicker. I think I was talking to someone else today about it, and they're like, I never thought I'd say this, but I really want Alvano back.
Maybe. I mean, he's going to come back off an injury, and so I think the question now. This is one big talking point this week. Well, it was even during the game, and maybe even before the game. At what point do you say we're not kicking field goals? And is there a threshold of saying we're only doing it if we're inside the 10-yard line and it's 4th and 7? I think that's something we have to be considering right now moving forward, because especially if it's 4th and less than 5 anywhere in field goal range, your odds of converting are probably going to be better than what we've seen so far. Not saying things can't flip around, but what have we proven to shown that we can make a 42 yarder it with anybody? I mean, all units, kicker, hold, snap, all of it. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. That is why the coaches get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. I know I said it after the second one, like just go for it. But hell, when it's
Yeah.
4th and 9, like on the 22-yard line, I mean, what do you do? You're
Kick it.
going for that? I mean, I guess
No.
I don't know.
Now it ain't like Purdue had the greatest special teams in the show either. That guy sucked for them too. He didn't even hit the net on his kick. It was just awful all around. They haven't figured out kicking position either.
That was
But
his
one
first field goal attempt this year so far, believe it or not.
really, did they just join the team or what the hell happened
We
there?
haven't kicked one yet. I have not kicked one yet.
Wow. Okay. Well, okay. Before I forget about this, we'll talk about later too. Did you see Purdue fire their offensive coordinator today?
Yeah.
Graham Harrell. Yeah.
I wrote that
I don't
down
think
late.
I thought their offense looked decent. I don't know. I think there's a lot of other stuff they got to worry about besides that.
Yeah. Decent. That you
It
call it
looks better.
decent.
It I mean, Purdue sucks. Big time sucks.
No, I thought I was like, shout out. Good for our defense. Got an offensive coordinator fired. He is not comfortable running the offense that they're trying to run now. I don't think Graham Harrell,
Uh-huh.
as if you guys remember him, quarterback 4 or 5 years at Texas Tech for Mike Leach, kind of one of the pioneers, I would say, of the air raid offense, and was damn good. Never really got anywhere in the NFL.
Michael Crabtree, right?
Yep, when they had Crabtree. That's the kind of offense I think he's familiar with. Purdue doesn't have the skill players to do that. I mean, clearly their wide receivers were not great. They struggled to even do anything up front running the ball. That was the concern. And I'm going to start here with a positive on the defensive side because there were a lot of positives. We held Purdue to 52 yards rushing on the day. And if we were going to lose this game, that was the way they were going to beat us, is get a lead, slowly just run the clock down, get a couple of first downs, and muck it up. Well, guess what? We did a great job of stuffing it. Both Maccabee and Reggie Love are good running backs. I mean, they're not world beaters, but they're solid, good running backs in the Big Ten. And then we did a good job on Hudson Card as well. So overall, the defense did what they needed to do, and it looked like they had that chip back on their shoulder. 5 sacks on the day, the big pick 6 that obviously put the nail in the coffin if it wasn't already at the time. The defense played with some fire under them, and that was good to see because we're going to need to see that game after game here in the Big Ten. Purdue's not a great football team, but it was good to get a little momentum back. And a win's a win. I mean, the word should, when you say we should win a game, right? Like, what? I'll word it this way to you because I want you to answer this question, Dak. I would say if you asked every Nebraska fan and probably every Purdue fan heading into that game, and you just asked a simple question, yes or no, you can't answer any other way. What does it, or is Nebraska better than Purdue?
Yes.
So
every single one would say yes.
Everyone is saying yes.
Unless you're just a Debbie Downer and hate everything about it.
You tell me, what does being better mean? Like, get behind that word better.
Skill wise, by about times 10. Coaching, I think everybody there would take Matt Rule over. I can't remember what their coach name is, but I want to talk about him later too. For just every part of Nebraska is better. Besides, we talked at the beginning, kicker, which that might be a dead tie. They both suck, but so yeah, mostly skilled players. You think your talent should be able to beat Purdue no matter what?
I think talent is the word that a majority of people go to when you say which team is better, right? You're not. There's a lot of other things that could factor into that. When you say we have the better team, you're saying that our talent is better. Now, what are you basing that off of when people say that? Like recruiting stars? Because we've had this discussion on this podcast how recruiting stars are great in high school, but that comes with potential and development, which then factors in coaching. So that makes it in there. I guess you could just say, like, if you're just watching just the eye test, like as far as who has better talent, I mean, I don't know. I would say that Nebraska fans over these past few years would say we have had better talent than Purdue, Indiana, Rutgers, Northwestern, Michigan State, Maryland. We would say we have better talent than them, but yet we lose a lot of these games. So why I like this discussion is because ultimately when you say you're better than the other team, that means you should win. You should be winning that football game. I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 times if you're saying we have better talent. Now, obviously, if it's it's close in talent, but maybe we're a little better, which I think might be the case.
Like your game last week.
And come this next week.
I'd say it's about dead even on talent. Illinois.
So then you say, are we better than Rutgers? I think
we'll find out.
We're going to find out. Your Kool-Aid drinkers are going to go, yeah, we are. We definitely do. Your pessimists are going to say, well, yeah, duh. And then that's why we're going to beat them sarcastically. So yeah, we're going to find out. And ultimately, the word better just comes down to winning, right? So if someone says, well, no, we've been better than Purdue in the last 6 years, have we? Before this
No.
year, they beat us 4 out of the last 6 years. They've been the better football team in 4 of those 6 years. That's what the word better means is winning games. So we can talk about talent. I like how you said we'll find out. We will find out in all these games if we are better than Rutgers, if we're better than Indiana, who's now rated and undefeated, Rutgers, who's undefeated, beating Washington. We were better than Purdue this year. We were not better than Illinois. Now, maybe going into the game, we said we were better, but we weren't.
We'll get into Rutgers on Wednesday, but very surprised you don't have a ranked opponent coming to town next week. I thought for sure they'd be ranked. Your next one after that is in the rankings, but what the heck has happened to Purdue's talent like we're talking about? They used to 2 years ago they had Aiden O'Connell, and then I cannot remember their fast wide receiver. You guys were in a shootout with them. Now they can't do jack shit on either side of the ball. I mean, maybe their coach has to stop worrying about himself in the weight room and start worrying about his own players. That dude's jacked up. that
I
dude's
wondered what
absolutely
your
jacked.
comment was going to be on him since you didn't even know his name.
It's Ryan Walters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. That dude's jacked up. Not a good coach, but yeah, he's jacked. So I don't know if he's just not recruiting well or what happened, but I thought Purdue used to be a decent team.
I,
They would always have been a battle.
I think Jeff Brom did a really good thing for that program.
Yep.
He obviously took the job at Louisville, and Ryan Walters came in 2 years ago. A lot of these guys are transferring out. I mean, Purdue, every year, I just felt like they were the team that had a passing quarterback that had one or two like NFL type receivers with like
Who
a
was that
defensive.
receiver? 2 years ago, I'm talking about.
Oh, my
It
Purdue
was
friends.
Palmer. It was Palmer and Case Thompson, and then they had one on
I
their
can't
side.
remember his name, but and then the defensively they always have an all Big Ten NFL type D end or linebacker. I mean, every year they do. So a lot of those guys did transfer out, and you could just tell their lack of talent, I guess, from those positions. And I like it showed. And then to me, that's where. Okay, I'll take a step back before we go into our offense because this game felt like two different games into one. Just listening to it, following along. We won 28-10. Purdue kicks a field goal to go up 3-0 with like 6:30 something left in the third quarter. And leading up to that point,
Were you crapping yourself by that point?
I think everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, this could be it. Like, not going down real bad doomsday scenario, but a little bit like, what in the world is going on? Like, we can't get the run game going. We're not scoring. We're special teams is horrible. There's a billion penalties getting thrown both ways. And Purdue now just drove the ball on the field, didn't get a touchdown, which was good, made a field goal, and everybody's like, oh boy. Like, I was saying it at halftime in the first quarter. I'm like, just find a way to win this game. Find a way to win this game. Who cares if you're not going to look back on it at the end of the year and say, man, we beat Purdue by 3 points. Oof. No, just win the game. Okay. And we get past that point, we responded. And finally, we started moving the ball, got a few touchdowns, made some halftime adjustments there, even though we got stopped in that first drive, and did what we should have done the whole game. And the final score, 28-10, we're not going to remember this game come into the year. We won't. We will not even talk about it because we did what we were supposed to do against a team that we were better than and won. But it just felt like two different games up until that switch got flipped for us. And then once it happened, everyone's like, okay, we're fine. We're fine. We're good. Deep breath.
You were just waiting to score that first touchdown, and basically after that you felt fine, but you just cannot get anywhere near the touchdown mark. Like I said, you were stuck in that no man's land for a lot of first half. But
can't here's my question after that. are we fine?
Are you asking
Like
me, am I more confident coming out of that game
this,
than
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think we were all in almost deep panic mode, and then the game gets over, and we're like, okay, like we're good. Let's move on. Next week, gotta win. Or, I mean, is there like again? Purdue's not good. I don't think. I think they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. I thought that from the beginning of the year.
um
Where are we at? Like I don't know. That's why are we fine? Like should we feel okay again
oh man.
as an
I think you
outsider?
come out of that. I think you come out of that. Holy shit. Maybe feeling better. I don't know which way I'd be leaning because that felt like a game that we saw 1,000 times. Nebraska looks like that on the road, and they've lost that game almost every time since they've been to Big Ten. It looked like the same game over and over.
So maybe we should feel better because we won a game like that, and that goes right into what Rule said in the post game. How that was a close game. Felt like it was a close game. We won that game in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Facts. Like that's
Um.
true. That's totally true. And we haven't done that. So that part feels good. The part that I'm like, what the heck? One is the run game again.
Yeah, that's kind of died out. I don't know
I
for
don't know how
sure
to
what.
feel. I don't know where my head's at there. Like Dowdell, who we thought beginning of the year was going to be this potential workhorse number one back, he was 9 carries for 21 yards, like 2.3 yards a carry. That's not good. Now, Emmett Johnson, he did some really good things. Oh, Ramir also was under 2 yards a carry. Emmett Johnson did some good things, and Ja'Cory Barney did some good things as well. And Purdue probably stole a little bit out of Illinois' playbook and said, we're going to stop the run. And props, because they did for the most part. But man, Dylan Raiola is still a dude. And
Looked good.
watching those highlights back, we are, I'm probably going to say this every Sunday recap pod. We are so lucky to have a guy like that because
If that was last year's team, 100% you get shut out that game.
we get shut out or the game 7, 6-3 or
6-3,
9-6
like
or 10-3. Like that's what the final score. We have a guy back there that can say we're not losing this game and go out and win it, even though Purdue's not great. He special throws. I mean, watching some of these highlights back, I'm like, okay, like Dylan's gonna take care of us in situations like this, but we don't need to be in the situation to get taken care of against a team like that.
Now,
I would hope not in the future.
now, what do you think your problem is with the run game? Is it blocking, or is it just the coach give up on it too early? Because
You
it
know
seems like they
what?
just give up, like they just say, "Fuck it, we're done."
I don't know. I'm puzzled by it. Someone asked me, and I thought it was a valid point that it felt like maybe our pass protection has been better this year,
Yep,
and our
your
run
run
blocking
hasn't.
maybe hasn't. And how those translate to each other, I know the footwork's different, the scheming is a lot different. Um, I would think that there'd be a lot of correlation though between the two. That if you're decent at one, you're decent at the other. Um, it is a little puzzling just because of what we did last year. I think that's the big thing. Like if we didn't have the year last year, which not saying our offense was good last year, but we ran the ball and everybody knew we were running the ball and we were still able to do it, and then we turned it over.
Well, you had to do it last year. You had
Well,
no. You,
right. So why we can't do it this year? That's what's a little more puzzling. We do have some younger guys playing. It does sound like Gunnar Gatula played well left tackle. Mazuka, TBD. We're gonna hopefully hear more from Rule tomorrow, like you said at the end of his press conference this week.
now, the one thing about last year though, running the ball, you had a running quarterback, so if teams were worried about that, you ain't
And
worried about Rayola taking off.
no, and we tried it. That is a whole nother conversation I want to dive into, maybe a different episode with Raiola and running the ball and everybody's thoughts on it, because I want to hear Austin's too. We've tried to put Heinrich in there a little bit this week again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird how we're using him. I still don't really know how I feel about it. Like, not strong either way. I do like that it probably adds preparation time for the other team. I'm waiting for like the big play to go. We've been doing this all because of this. for this one play or two plays. This is why we've been doing it. Maybe we'll wait for Ohio State to do that. I don't know. We should be just doing it to win a game, but we still keep throwing him out there here and there. I do like, I mean, if running the quarterback when we can, like, I think that's a strong part of an offense. And like, if I had a random football team, that'd be a quarterback. I'd want someone that can run the ball. Like the Adrian Martinez's are of the world. They're kind of my style. Like I like those guys that are better runners overall than passers, but can still throw it. But Dylan obviously is not that. He's very, very gifted though in other ways, in a lot of ways better than what we've had in the past. For sure, his potential and ceiling is far higher than anything we've had in recent years. And I think his leadership capabilities too, I think will pay off. And I think maybe we're starting to see that a little bit. I just can't emphasize how important he is to this team and how much he does for us. It is, I don't, his stats for what, 16 for 25, I think this week for 250-ish yards and a touchdown. Like he's not putting up gaudy numbers. He's not, and he knows he's not worried about that. That's what I so far love about it. You don't see him complaining or saying, "Oh man, we're not doing this enough or this enough." He's sticking to what the coaches want him to do, and regardless of who we played, we're 4-1.
Now so what's your final call? Are you more confident or less confident coming out of that game?
I would say I'd say I'm neutral. I know it's a podcast. I'm supposed to take a side and go one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm almost the same way, but
I'm neutral.
Since you've been talking, I found that side.
I'm still waiting to see the proof of a big win. Well, I say big win, a close win. I'm going to say a close one because you can say this was a close one in the fourth quarter. I get it. And it was a close game. It was a battle. The second part, we kicked their butt in it after the 6:30 mark in the third quarter. But when you see the record in 4 weeks on the TV that says Matt Rule's record in one-score games, this isn't going to count for it. The narrative's still going to be, can we win a one-score game? I'm not saying we should have tanked so it was a one-score game, but no one's going to think of this game as a one-score game at the end of the year. It's not. That narrative is still going to stick around until we can beat it. And I thought this week might be the game that we have to beat it. Like I did think it was going to be a close game, but it wasn't. And we won by double digits again. So I feel I'm neutral on it, I guess is where I'm at. We'll have to see the next couple of games.
Yeah, I was kind of neutral going in the podcast, but I think I'm leaning towards I'd be more worried because I mean there's a lot of factors. Now you find out you can't trust your special teams at all. And I think Purdue is awful. The big thing is about your special teams. You got to be crap for yourself now because you don't trust anything about that. And then another reason I'd be a little bit more worried is Indiana and Rutgers just keep on looking like they're better than what we all thought. And your schedule's not looking easy.
They're going to be games that set us straight for the year where we're at. They really will be. I think we opened as a 6.5 point favorite today.
Yeah, that's higher than what I
maybe
thought.
A little high, but
yep, I was like, "Ooh."
We went all this time. We have not mentioned the refs once. And
do we need to?
You know what? I just feel like that's the topic that everybody's talking about right now, and we haven't had our little ref spiel here this year yet. We've been kind of quiet on them. I feel like this would be a good game to have it. There were a lot of penalties. Let me see. The total penalty yards for both teams ended up being, here we go. We had
about 200 something.
We had 11 penalties for 94 yards, and they had 13 for 165. Yeah,
now,
200 and almost 260 yards of penalties.
Now, have you gone back and looked at the one play I'm sure you love is the offensive pass interference?
Okay. That's the play that everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
And Rule mentions it, talks about it quite a bit. You go back and watch it. He was very upset mid-game during it. They got that play wrong, like they did. There's no question about it. They missed it.
I think they did some make them calls too after
I
that.
think going back to the review, you can't review whether contact was made. The only thing they could review was whether the ball wasn't beyond the line of scrimmage to make it an offensive pass interference. That wasn't the case, or that was the case. So it was still a pass interference. They messed that one up. Here, and just to remind people how we think about, or at least how I think about refs, because there's a whole bunch of opinions out there. People, oh man, the stadium refs are the worst. There's so many of them. There were a lot of penalties called, but when I asked the question, how many calls did they miss? Both ways, both teams. Everyone goes to that one. Like, again, I didn't watch the game, but people can't tell me what other calls. I mean, there's obviously some ones that are judgment calls, but what other calls do you think that they messed up on?
I didn't think they ref like in a terrible game refing all around. That one was awful. Like if you're the ref and you see that you can't overturn it, you're probably watching it like, oh my god, I really messed that one up. But other than that, I don't think they were awful. They didn't let them play at all. Like if you hold someone at all in that game, they're calling that. Like they need to let them. My thing about the refs is quit trying to make the show about yourself and let the players play a little bit. Like it was every play, just flag it, flag it.
But if they're penalties, they're penalties.
Yeah,
like
that's. Yeah, but it's kind of like basketball. You call the game different final 2 minutes than you do.
That's what I'm saying. Tell me on all those pass interferences they called on Purdue. Tell me which one of those weren't pass interference.
They were.
Like so it's like yeah, you could argue and say don't make the game about yourself. I think if they're penalties, they're penalties.
Yeah, and that's because Purdue's a bad team. They don't.
And that's maybe the product of it. When teams aren't very good, and this goes to any sport, what happens? You're not really doing it on purpose, but you kind of start breaking the rules. You start cheating a little bit because you're not in position to make the play. Now, to Rule's comment, specifically, he's talking about that one play. Guys are executing the plays and they don't know what to do. Again, the one play, I want to know about the others. Like there's gonna be missed calls. That's part of refereeing, like officiating. That's going to happen. There's a lot of judgment in it. But when there's penalties, they're penalties. And I thought Dylan did a great job of identifying that Purdue's DBs were not going to ever turn their head and they were in man coverage. And I don't know if he was doing it on purpose, but he was underthrowing the ball by just 2 yards, which is what an NFL quarterback would do. So our guy had to stop and come back to the ball. Boom, PI. Not saying that's the best strategy to move the ball on offense, but hey, guess what? It's 15 yards.
I forgot about them not turning your head. So they come out of this game. They decided they had to fire their OC. They had so many other problems. I do not get why they fired that guy, but I'm not a huge Purdue person either. Anyway,
here's my entire like overall thing on refs. One, with coaches, I agree that I'm not gonna say I agree with Rule's personal foul call on why he got it, and he made his explanation on whatever besides the point. I agree that coaches need to be the ones fighting for their players with officials to get calls. And sometimes you just do it because you do it and you don't even really agree that that's what happened on the play. You do it to show your players that I have your back. I'm fighting for you because guess what? In return, they're going to fight for you on the field. I think that's very, very important. And really good coaches do that. Scott Frost did not do that until he was desperate at the end. Mike Riley, I laugh. I think that's important because too, players should never, ever complain to officials, no matter the situation. The only one that might have a little justification is the quarterback. If you have a relationship with the head ref, which you see more in the NFL than college, players should never talk to the officials. And if your coach is doing their job right, that shouldn't happen. Third thing, officials should never be the reason that you won or lost a game. That should never be a justification, ever. Fourth thing, I kind of mentioned this, calls are going to be missed. Some games will be more than others. Some games will be more penalties than others. Last thing, the worst line that I hate, that people say, God, the refs hate Nebraska. The Big Ten hates Nebraska. The refs hate us. There is not a single reffing crew out there that is out to get anybody. Officials are never going to screw a team over because they have spite for you. That's not going to happen. And people said the refs were bad and called somebody. Well, yeah, guess what? Purdue still had more penalties than us. So everybody's opinions on refereeing, and it's only worse now because we have video to like see every angle of how they can miss a call live.
Yeah.
It's only worse and worse and worse. And then on top of that, you can replay and see it the next day. And I mean, it's all out there. Yes, there were a lot of penalties. Yes, it chops the game up. But guess what? If you execute and you don't false start on 4th and 1, Bryce Benhart, like, you can't do that. Don't do that crap.
Yeah. I just feel like Big Ten reffing. I was talking about this yesterday too. Big Ten reffing is worse than any other conference that I watch. I feel like, especially lower games like this, Purdue, Nebraska, Indiana, Maryland, say that's lower game. I feel like they put just the shittiest reffing crews out there, like Michigan State last year, Nebraska. Those guys had no clue what they were doing.
Yeah, I remember. I will say I don't know who these guys were. That was my first question after the game was who are the officials? Because a lot of times you'll see the same guys week after week. I didn't recognize these guys at all.
I didn't either. I was like, I never saw these guys.
So I don't know the extent of where they came from. Maybe they came with the Pac-12 officials and with these other teams. I'm not sure, but it did. It just it was funny just going back and watching some of it. I'm like, well, yeah, there's a lot of penalties, but at the same time, I'm like, a lot of these are penalties. Maybe that's just a product of two not overly great football teams.
I don't think they were terrible. Like I said, I don't think that they refed a terrible game. When they threw that flag at the beginning of the offense pass for side, I was like, oh boy, here we go. This is gonna be a disaster. But I didn't think they refed a terrible game at all. They called, like you said, they called what they saw on the field. And if Purdue is not gonna turn their heads, I don't know what they're coaching and practice at all. That's high school level stuff. If they're not gonna turn their heads, call it. Like that's on them. Turn your head and look for the ball.
All right. Well, that's all we got for time this week. We'll be back Wednesday previewing Rutgers. Go Big Red.
Boomer Sooner, big win.
Yes, they did.